We seek the truth.
Would you be handing your resignation to the Minister of Culture tomorrow, sir?
No, I will not.
The leader of the opposition, you have accused your government, sir, of using the Grenada Development Bank to facilitate the financing of personal loans for certain government ministers.
The other side is in no position to talk about those issues, and I will leave it there.
We discover new perspectives.
You know his leadership style, and so many are saying, why are you coming now to talk about those issues?
Now is the time to speak. You have the right to decide who will take over.
And you met with Dr. Mitchell, and perhaps you might want to confirm what that meeting was about in your response. But
Dr. Mitchell, like myself, are Grenadians.
We ask the right questions.
why was there no report on the work done of the commission? And how is this new committee different from the commission that was initially established back in 2022? So who are these elements that are using you?
I'm disappointed in my political leader.
And why is that animating those political conversations now?
This is a very interesting question.
The Bubb Report with Dr. Kellan Bubb. Thought-provoking, truthful, unbiased, and truly original reporting.
Hi everyone, thanks for checking out the Bubb Report's social media pages. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch our weekly live show, follow our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can catch repeat episodes on Wednesdays at 4 and 5 p.m. respectively on CRFM Radio and GBN TV in Grenada. We are also viewed on Sundays at 8 p.m. on WPG10 throughout the Caribbean. Thanks for watching. Hello, everyone, and we welcome you to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. Of course, I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellan Bubb. Of course, we want to begin this week's edition of the program by thanking everyone in the national community in Grenada for coming out last week, Thursday, at the Grenada Trade Center for supporting the inaugural Future Forward Summit by the Bubb Report in honor of Leslie Pear, Lou Smith, and George Grant. Of course, this was also the Bubb Report's 5th anniversary celebration. And so we want to thank our corporate sponsors. That was George F. Huggins and Company Grenada Limited, the Investment Migration Agency of Grenada, as well as Range Developments for supporting our initiative. Of course, we want to thank our guest speaker, who incidentally was in Grenada at the time, Dr. Didicus Jules, who is also the Director General of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, for being our guest speaker. We do intend to make this an annual event. We do intend to also have a postmortem with respect to how this event went and improve on it so that it becomes a quality marquee event in the future. And as we go to our first break, I do want to play some reflections from Ruggles Ferguson with respect to his thoughts on the Bubb Report's initiative to have this public engagement in Grenada.
Say, and publicly say, I've told Dr. Bubb on many occasions how proud I am of him and his development over the years. He has been interviewing me for 25 years now, since back in 2001, when I was president of the Grenada Bar Association, and of course an active practitioner, yes, and particularly when he was associated with CC6. So I've seen him develop from young Kellan to Mr. Kellan Bubb, and now proudly today, Dr. Kellan Bubb. And let me ask you for a special round of applause for him. I know, being associated with so many lectures myself over the years, that this is not an easy event to put together. We all hear it may look simple, but lots of logistics go into it, resources go into it. And he has been able, in his just short 5 years, in celebration of his 5th anniversary, to leave with us and to create this, what I hope to be an institutional activity, I think is really, really commendable. And even up to, I think was it last Sunday, so he has been interviewing me since 2001, up to last week Sunday, or week before Sunday, I can't remember, but up to very recently. Is particularly important, and we must never lose sight of, is the fact that it's not just a lecture, but it's a lecture in recognition of 3 stalwarts in media: George Grant, Leslie Pierre, and Lou Smith. Lou Smith is a seasoned broadcaster going back to the early 70s. And I always make the point that part of the shortcomings of us in the region, our leaders, and the leaders of organizations, is that we don't recognize our own people. And this truly is an event where we have now media practitioners being recognized.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
And folks, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. Now, as you are coming into the room, please remember to like and share this week's live stream. And we would love to hear where, in fact, you are watching the Bubb Report from. So if you can just, in the comment section, tell us where you are watching the program from, so that we can actually give you a shout out as well as the program progresses. Now, for this week's program, we are going to talk about Project Polaris. And of course, the government of Grenada announced last week that they entered into a 15-year collaboration and licensing agreement with the Mount Sinai International Hospital that will make the General Hospital in Grenada an affiliate of Mount Sinai's international health system. Now, according to the government of Grenada and Mount Sinai, a Mount Sinai affiliate here refers to an organization or institution that has a formal affiliation with Mount Sinai Health System, which includes the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. Now, this affiliation can take various forms, including clinical, academic, or research partnerships, and it often involves collaboration on teaching, research, and patient care. Now, the signing of the agreement between Grenada and Mount Sinai International was, of course, the highlight of a news conference on the 14th of May, that's last week, Wednesday, where Health Minister Philip Tellersford and Dr. Sasby Dorotfix, I hope I'm pronouncing the gentleman's name correct, who's the president of Mount Sinai International, signed the agreement. Now, Grenada will pay $2.5 million US to the healthcare institution, whose head office is in the United States, New York, to be specific. Now, Andrea St. Bernard, the lead government representative for the new hospital project, which is labeled as Project Polaris, indicated that the collaboration and licensing agreement will allow for the government of Grenada to benefit from the experience and expertise from the full network of services offered by Mount Sinai. Now, the goal of Project Polaris, according to the government of Grenada, is the construction of a new research and teaching hospital facility in Hopevale, St. George, as well as, of course, they're saying that this hospital facility will be a climate smart facility on 84 acres of land out there in Hopevale, St. George's. Now, what we're going to be doing this morning on the Bubb Report is that we will attempt to make sense of this new agreement with Mount Sinai Hospital. Of course, for full disclosure, I just want to let it be known that we did reach out to the government of Grenada to invite members of the Project Polaris team, including Mr. Dolland and Ms. St. Bernard. They indicated that they would be willing to send someone next week because, quite frankly, as a journalist, I believe that the line of questioning, while it was very relevant, I thought that much more of a deep dive was needed at that press conference. And that's what we will attempt to do here on the Bubb Report, starting today and continuing next week, to do a deeper dive of the implications of this new agreement with Mount Sinai Hospital. But here, to make sense of this, is a second-time viewer to the Bubb Report. He is Mr. Terran Gilchrist. He's Mr. Terran Gilchrist. And, of course, he's a hospital management specialist who also worked in the past with the government of Grenada, with the past government of Grenada, that is, on hospital services, including on the issue of statutorization, I believe. Mr. Gilchrist, welcome back to the Bubb Report, sir.
Good morning and welcome. I'm happy to be here again.
Yes, absolutely. You know, we have to rely on our Grenadian expertise, of which there are many, and we have a wealth of experts out there. But Mr. Gilchrist, I'm sure you probably heard the government's announcement. And what I want you to do is to speak to this model that is being proposed by the government between the government of Grenada and Mount Sinai. Does this come across as a private-public partnership? And if so, what are the cost implications for the taxpayer for entering into a private-public partnership, quite frankly, with a medical institution that is not in the business of esoterics? They're in the business of profit, as I understand it. No private hospital in the U.S. does anything for altruistic reasons, as far as I'm concerned.
Good morning, and just let me put my face and my name in perspective.
Yes.
You said that I am a hospital management specialist. I was a former policy advisor to the then NDC government. I'm not too sure if it's the same NDC, but the policy advisor. I'm also in Trinidad presently. I've worked in the Trinidad healthcare system, reached as far as the Chief Executive Officer of the Northwest Regional Health Authority and an adjunct lecturer at the University of Trinidad and Tobago in hospital management system for the region. In addition to that, I worked as a technical consultant in 4 years in Montserrat as the head and lead of the Hospital and Healthcare Improvement Project funded by the budget, specifically to deal with the reconstruction of a brand new hospital. Then I moved over to the the TCI, so I understand the TCI experience. I was director of health policy and planning there. So currently I'm in Trinidad, and I'm very, very excited to be sharing my perspective on Project Polaris. Let me start by answering your question this way. That the issue of a new hospital is nothing new to Grenada. I mean, the NDC government in 2012, 10-12, you will know that there was a project for the replacement of the St. George's General Hospital in collaboration with the University, St. George's University. At that time, I was the focal point and policy advisor on the team. So the issue of a need for a new hospital is nothing new to Grenada. Hospitals are in the region, many governments are providing huge investment and development in transforming the hospital services. And there are a number of reasons for that. Because the potential benefit that can be derived as a result of constructing a new hospital. But one has to be very careful. And the experience in the region is clearly documented. And I can speak to the experience in TCI, Montserrat, and in Trinidad and Tobago, the efforts to build and to expand access and coverage. And in particular, in some countries, is about bed capacity. As you know, for example, there's a shortage of beds, availability of beds in most existing hospitals now. And it's a result of the global pandemic in non-communicable diseases and infectious diseases. So the efforts by the government to construct a brand new hospital, a state-of-the-art hospital, I am in full support of that. Grenada is not the only country. Currently, the health authority in Trinidad and Tobago is constructing a brand new central block at the cost of $1 billion, and many of the Caribbean countries. The question we want to ask ourselves, and I have listened to the press conference by the government very carefully. I've done some background reading on Mount Sinai, and I want to put on record very early that I have done extensive research on Mount Sinai, and I have absolutely no issue, no problem with the cutting-edge technology and the reputation of the Mount Sinai brand in New York. There are many other healthcare systems in the region or in the world, like Interhealth Canada, that is currently in Turks and Caicos Islands. In fact, they had the first public-private partnership in the region, that is Interhealth Canada. So I have no problem with Mount Sinai. And those of us, we can look to the internet and read about Mount Sinai in terms of the international, the quality of service, the expertise in medical education, research, and in terms of the hospital accreditation and global award. In fact, I saw they have Magnet Award, which is an award specified as a focus on nursing care and nursing services. So I have no problem. The issue I looked at is the issue of some of the things that came out from the press conference, which I want to make some comments on.
Yes, I want you. Yes, I want you to stick a pin there because we will be getting into all of that. But I want us to talk about the Turks and Caicos Island experience, because in the TCI, they brand their healthcare system as now being the first private-public health partnership in the Caribbean. So since its launch, since its inception in the Turks and Caicos Islands, how has that improved, big picture now, the overall healthcare capacity and overall health outcomes for the people of the Turks and Caicos Islands? And what were some of the drawbacks of that PPP that TCI entered into with that Canadian organization?
So, as you know, that was a public-private partnership.
Yes.
The government inability to, first of all, there was a system review of the health system review of the country. And there was a need to construct 2 state-of-the-art hospitals. That was a decision by the government. The government did not have the financial resources to do so. So therefore, they have to find a strategic partner who will provide the funding arrangements, design the hospital, build, and operate and ultimately transfer to the government. The arrangement started in 2008. It is a 25 years arrangement. It's a 189-bed facility hospital. The contractual arrangement in the Turks and Caicos Islands is that the InterHealth Canada will finance, they will design, build, commission, and manage those hospitals over a 25-year period. And the government of TCI will provide what is called an availability payment for the investment and also for the operations of those facilities. Now, obviously, it comes at huge cost to the people of TCI because the investor goes on the international market. He has to get return on investment, and in addition to that, profit, a reasonable profit. So faced with this financial issue, the government realized that they need a predictable financing mechanism for this project. And hence, the government moved forward and established the National Health Insurance and a regulatory authority. Because remember, the government have the responsibility for providing health care in the country. The provider, the private provider, provides on the behalf of the government. And therefore, they had huge financial issues with respect to cost explosion. Yeah. And there are issues related to the treatment overseas programs, which consumed a significant amount of money for of the country. And over the years, the financing, the health financing was crucial to the realization of this PPP arrangement. It could not have taken place before, except there is a financing arrangement and a regulatory system. Because at the end of the day, it's the people must be able to get access to services. And not only access, you must provide access, there must be equity, there must be coverage, the issue of safety, and the issue of efficiency in the delivery of services. From all intent and purposes, the government, at the time I was Director of Health Policy and Planning, the government's responsibility to measure the performance of the InterHealth Canada, because there is a contract arrangement. And once those contracts have been met, the payments are usually made. But the payments, Dr. Bubb, was not an easy payment. It was millions of dollars per annum. There are three aspects to the point. There's the infrastructure component and the day-to-day running of the hospital. So it was a very huge undertaking on the behalf of the people at TCI. So there's an issue of financial sustainability that they experience now in TCI with respect to the escalated costs.
Correct. In fact, I'm reading a press release here that from Turks and Caicos Weekly News That's February 23rd, where it says Premier Charles Washington said the territory's long-term healthcare contract is too costly and it is not working in the best interest of the people. The Turks and Caicos government, of course, they went on to talk about the PPP that you just referenced there. But I just want to follow up on something you said with respect to national health insurance. Was the TCI government able to implement and institute a health insurance program in tandem with that partnership agreement that they entered into with that Canadian firm?
No. I think it's not in tandem because the national health financing arrangement is the government's responsibility, right? The investor builds the hospital at record time, and it's the government's responsibility. That's not responsibility for the state to determine the readiness of the country to pay additional fee. That was a very huge undertaking. That's very huge undertaking. And in the lessons learned in the TCI arrangement, right? You see this concept of state of the art. State of the art requires state of the art funding and financing. Don't let people fool you with this. And I always say that, and I make the point very early, the United States healthcare system is a market-based consumer system. They're spending approximately 18.1% of the total expenditure on health. They are the biggest spender of healthcare, the biggest investor in healthcare in the United States. Yes? In the Caribbean, in these low resource constrained countries, we are spending approximately 3.1% or 4% of the total expenditure on health. Very much, not much. So the financing is one of the biggest issue with respect to hospital construction and hospital centrism. We know, Dr. Bubb, that the focus on hospital, they call it a hospital-based healthcare system, is unsustainable. And hospital-based healthcare system is unsustainable in countries that have small resources. And I'm glad to hear that the Polaris arrangement spoke about an integrated model. Very happy about it. Integrated means in the journey of the patient through the continuum of care starts at the primary care level. And there will be some relationship between the primary and this facility. But I want to go back carefully. Remember in TCI, the InterHealth Canada fund, they build and they design and they construct and they manage, they recruit. If you go to TCI now, you apply to the InterHealth Canada for a job. Is it that in Grenada that Mount Sinai will be responsible for management of this hospital?
And stick a pin there, Mr. Gilchrist, because that is one of the questions you've sort of preempted. But I want to talk about, again, funding healthcare, because we cannot think about funding healthcare without thinking about having some sort of health insurance, public health insurance system in place. Yes, to be able to fund that, to fund the services that any new hospital facility, that this current hospital system in the context of integrated healthcare is to be able to fund. So recently, the government of Grenada just scuttled that NHI contract that they had, I believe, with one Dr. Kester Ned, who was working with the previous government on this in developing a national health insurance plan. In the context of this Project Polaris, no mention was made of NHI there and how NHI fits within the context of that integrated healthcare model. Do you see that as a deficiency, sir? Not having NHI articulated as part of this overall plan?
Let me make a comment. With respect to hospital project development, they actually have three phases. There is a pre-investment stage, an investment phase, and a post-investment phase.
Yes.
The pre-investment phase is where we are at this stage. This is the feasibility. This is where you're determining the size of the hospital, your demand analysis, your proposals, your HR issues. And this is the point where you're doing your economic evaluation and your financial analysis with respect to the sustainability of this project on completion. This is a very important phase in the project. And you notice in the budget speech, it mentioned 2025, focus on design and financing, and some monies were placed in the budget, right? And in 2026, they're going to break ground. Hopefully that will be the investment stage, which is like the construction and procurement. And then the post-investment phase, they'll deal with the commissioning and operating. Now, my biggest issue, though, is centered around the pre-investment stage. That preliminary feasibility, that where you decide very upfront where the economic sustainability of the project from an HR, supplies, etc., etc. The project must be costed before it is constructed, and that information must be made known. Let me tell you, during the NBC in 2012, when I was advised, in the IFC, which is the International Financial Corporation, which is the private sector arm of the World Bank, was contracted by the NDC government to provide advisory services to the government, right? They were the agency. There was a fee paid to them. Similarly, I think Mount Sinai is providing a similar role. I think so. What the team did was to look at the financial sustainability of the project with respect to revenue and expenditure. How much the infrastructure, capital infrastructure will cost, how much the equipment infrastructure will cost, how much the operational cost, where are the revenue sources going to come from, etc., and come up with some sensitivity analysis or scenarios by which the government going to raise funding. After you know that, then the issue of sustainable financing through the government revenue. Now, keep in mind, currently in Grenada, there's a small user fee, right? There's a very small user fee. And they get some money.
A small user fee here is relative, I think, depending
on...
No,
user fee means out-of-pocket payment where you pay at the hospital. People don't pay much.
Right, you mean at the hospital itself, right? But
we're talking about hospital. We're not talking about anything else.
Okay, good. Understood. Right? All right, go ahead.
So the first phase of the project, where we are at the stage, and the government is at the first phase of the project. And I am very concerned, Kellan, is that the transparency of this phase. Because I am asking the question, what is therefore, and I think that should be answered, we should be looked at, the role of the St. George's Medical School, the role of the engagement and involvement of our relationship with the Cuban government, the role and involvement of the private healthcare sector in Grenada, right? The role of PAHO, WHO, which are the regional advisor on hospital modernization and development. It is important that this early stage that the government get these major stakeholders involved in deciding the priorities for this hospital. What government will do is that wait until the end and then talk about it. So they are in the pre-investment stage, which is the feasibility phase. So I'm very careful to make criticism of the government until I see a particular document, a transaction document.
Okay, I want you to stick a pin because in respect of the terms and conditions, the question was posed by journalist Linda Straker at the press conference, and this is what Ms. Andrea Sen-Bernard said. Let's watch this engagement.
So the collaboration and license agreement is really an agreement that allows the government of Grenada the opportunity to benefit from the experience and expertise and the full network of services that Mount Sinai has to offer. A main component of it is a license. So the right for the government of Grenada General Hospital to be known as in affiliation with Mount Sinai. What that means is Mount Sinai is committed to working with the government of Grenada to ensure that we raise our standards to international recognized levels. The consequence of losing that agreement is essentially we would lose the benefit of that collaboration and the benefit of being able to license the General Hospital as being in affiliation with Mount Sinai. So it's really an agreement that signifies collaboration where the two partners are working together to maintain the vision of improving the healthcare service to a standard that is recognized and should be recognized as being in affiliation with Mount Sinai. The cost of the fee for the services, it changes. There are various services that will be available that we will be using over the course of the 15 years. And of course, we have the opportunity to customize that as we understand what are the needs. Roughly, it's about $2.5 million per year for the next 5 years, working with Mount Sinai in the collaboration and license agreement.
Mr. Gilchrist, let's talk about it. Please break this down in layman's terms. Because at least, again, as I said, for full disclosure, we did invite, and the press secretary gave us a commitment that Ms. St. Bernard and perhaps Mr. Dolan, that's his name, Damian Dolan, I believe, will be on the Bubb Report next week. But in layman's terms, could you break this down for a layman like myself who do not understand?
There's a difference between licensing and accreditation. Right? Mount Sinai do not accredit hospital.
Yeah.
The accrediting agency is Joint Commission International. In England, is Canada, Canada accreditation. But they do licensing. There's an implication for licensing and a financial implication for licensing. Now, I am fully supportive, and I think they're right, because the future of hospitals is accreditation, which is a standard approved of international standards. And Mount Sinai Hospital are internationally accredited. So there's a difference between affiliation and accreditation. The accreditation is with standards. Affiliation have some financial implication and legal implication, which our lawyers will look at. But the fee, the quoted fee is 2.5 million US, right?
Yes.
Over a 15-year period. So I asked myself, that have nothing to do with the construction of the hospital. That fee have nothing to do with it. They then will find a private provider to design, build, or finance the hospital. This is completely different. This 2.5 million is worked out to be 37.5 million US over 15 years. To tie the Grenadian people into that kind of arrangement. In the case of in 2012, we have had a similar arrangement to advise, maybe it's not similar, to advise the government and the other fee by the IFC, International, and the IFC, the Financial Corporation, the private sector, and the World Bank. This arrangement to me, 15 years at 2.5 US, I would like to see the actual detail of the partnership. But I can't talk to the partnership, but it is strange. It means, therefore, I predict, I may be wrong, this hospital most likely will be managed by Mount Sinai. It will be managed by Mount Sinai, not necessarily by the Grenadian people. I am smelling it this way because in the TCI arrangement, I Canada have a 25 agreement, at least maybe when the hospital is constructed, the provider partnership will manage the hospital over a period, and the government will have to have an availability payment for over the period, the lifetime of the project. It is scary at this stage, but we don't have the information, Kellan. We're not too sure. There's a lot of talk. I would love to see the documentation. In the case of the previous NDC, we had a transaction document which was produced by Interhealth Canada. I have not seen any document produced by Mount Sinai for the arrangement and the engagement for since 2024. So at this stage, we're not sure.
Now, what would be the implications if, as you're predicting here, that Mount Sinai would have a stake in the management of the hospital? What will be the implication in respect of the current fiduciary responsibility by government to manage the hospital? Because first and foremost, the Minister of Health announced earlier on the Bubb Report that earlier this year, that is, that the hospital, that they're going ahead with statutorization as of the 1st of January. And then the Prime Minister came on and said something totally different in respect of how that rollout would look. Because, of course, the statutorization structure here would mean that there would be a board of directors, there would be a CEO, and all of that. So how does that come up against, meaning the statutorization of government's announcement of a pro-statutorization, come up against what you're saying now, that Mount Sinai may have a role in the management of the facility? Wouldn't that be a conflict of interest here?
Well, I think the government's policy on statutorization is on hold. I have not heard anything mentioned about it. From the Prime Minister, when the Minister for Health mentioned it for some 1st of January, the Prime Minister came and said, well, it's not really the 1st of January, it's a process.
Right.
It's a process.
Which again was confusing. The messaging was very confusing.
The government, I think the government have realized that might be, the minister maybe misspoke. I don't think the minister misspoke at that time. Because remember, keep in mind, hospital, that project is a very complex and expensive undertaking. And the fact that you're using the US standard for constructing that hospital, the cost is even higher. We as practitioners know that hospitals using the US standards will cost more. Okay, we know that. So I think that the management of this new entity, the commissioning of this facility and operation of this facility, the Mount Sinai team will be in the driving seat. And this raises the issue, Bob, I noticed the issue of the philosophy of the Mount Sinai team says that they expect to provide patient care, specialist care, and medical training and education and research and development. The private provider investing in that hospital, I think it's very investing in that hospital. We'll want to ensure that the facility is managed properly and we're able to maintain the international standard that they speak about. Are the Grenadian people ready for that? Are the Ministry of Health ready for that? So those are some of the questions I will ask. How involved are the chief medical officer and nursing departments in this arrangement? And that is why, Bob, I'm calling on the government to engage very early the services of PAHO WHO. In some countries, they recommend it as a check consultant simply because we are having a partnership with a private entity, which we will want to have return on investment. And I am telling you that I am very supportive of all the aims of the project, the issue of improving quality, efficiency, building a hospital that is smart. And when I say smart, I mean a hospital that is efficient. Not a hospital that is lean, not fat. Right? A hospital that is safe, and sustainable and can be responsive to the needs of the Grenadian population. And I've seen they said so about adaptable, and that is excellent. But I also want to say that the effort to build this hospital is not a bad policy. The implementation and engagement of the Grenadian people is important. And that is why the country's willingness and readiness, the government, whether the government has enough fiscal space in the macroeconomic outlook to invest and to allocate more resources to health, to the healthcare. Because right now, the government is viewing health as an investment, as an engine of economic activity through medical tourism and education. But all the other Caribbean countries are also involved in that, and in Latin America. So there's a global competition. But the first and foremost responsibility of the government is to provide the best possible care to the Grenadian people, is to provide access and coverage to the Grenadian people. But whether the Grenadian people have the will to pay, they will have to pay additional resources to do so. That's a dialogue must be conducted nationally. This is not nationally. This project should not be, and I always said, the health is not a political matter. Health is a national, a fundamental human right. Whether you are NMP or NDC, you have a right to access the best possible care, the best affordable possible care that the government can provide for you. However, this is hospital we're talking about. We are not talking about primary care. We are talking about hospital. And that's why initially I said that hospitals solve problems that people already see. It doesn't prevent care. And therefore, the cost will be increasing astronomically if there isn't a proper engagement and priority setting at the early stage and involvement of all agencies in this discussion. But I've not seen the Ministry of Health technocrats involved at this stage. I don't know what is happening. I saw the minister.
Right, and let us sort of do a sort of a deeper dive. You reference it here, Mount Sinai. They're a non-profit international hospital facility, of course, but of course, no, that they also generate revenue through high-cost care and strategic partnerships. Now, as you said, in the context of engaging partners like the Pan American Health Organization, the World Health Organization, and other international health partners who work within that public healthcare space. What I suspect you're saying here is that this is not within the remit of what the Caribbean is used to. But at the same time, I believe there is a need, perhaps, and I go back to the Liat argument where people were saying, should Liat be a private company versus should it be continuing to operate as at a loss because of its function to serve the Caribbean as a public good? So I want to get your thoughts on that. Do you think that by bringing in such an organization as Mount Sinai, that government is perhaps looking at ways of using private sector efficiency and blending that with that public healthcare model that already exists?
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, in the United Kingdom, the private financing initiative like PFIs are involved in constructing a healthcare facility and for government, because government do not have the financial resources. They don't have it, and therefore they reach out to the private sector. Also, they're also bringing in private sector management expertise to improve efficiency. But government have to be very careful. That's all I'm saying. All I am saying is that government have to be careful, right? Because there is a potential, because we know there's a potential that you could have something called cost explosion. And the desires and interests of the private provider is not the desires and interests of the public sector. So that is why the question is that whose interest you think the Mount Sinai will serve? Whose interest? Well, they said they're committed to the Grenadian people. They're committed to healthcare. But I have a lot of confidence.
Of course, they're going to say that for their.
I have a lot of confidence in. That's why it's recommended that government employ a check consultant. The recommendation, the check consultant from the PAC will look after they are neutral person in this issue, and their responsibility is to ensure that they have the best and the most efficient and more fair system and the better utilizer of services. That's why right now it is recommended that government hire a check consultant who work on the behalf of the people of Grenada, because government can go in bed with private providers. You know that. Governments win elections and lose elections on hospitals.
Yes.
Hospitals are the cathedral of the healthcare system. They said hospital are the center of the healthcare system. And there is a potential for massive investment. I have no issues with that. The issue I have is that whether people, it's affordable, it's equitable, it is safe, and it is efficient and sustainable. That is what the Grenadian people and how much they will have to pay. It is important that the government have a responsibility to protect our people from escalating healthcare costs. And that is why you mention all the time the importance of a universal healthcare financing system, which is the national health insurance, where the rich...
Which by the way, a plan already existed, which was scuttled. And that cost millions to put together. Now we don't even know. And I'm telegraphing to the government of Grenada by way of the guests who will be coming on next week that's one of the questions I'll be asking, because national health insurance is so crucial and so critical if we are to improve any notions of healthcare delivery in the country.
But I think in the last budget presentation, and I like to give the government credit, in the budget presentation, there's financial commitment to advance the national health insurance. There was a study done, the feasibility study by the UWI, in which I was part of that, which says that the total expenditure in this country, the amount of money spent by the public and the government, is somewhere in the vicinity of 6.5. So I'm saying there is enough money. I think they need a system by which to do so. And government should speedily move forward with this process, because I think there's a lot of monies. You know where that money is coming? You know where the government source of funding for the project? Currently, the CBI. Government commit 25 million US in a special fund in ECCB, and that's going to come from the CBI fund, which we know what's going on now. That is why it is important that this project, there be an economic evaluation of this project with respect to the sustainability, and the Grenadian people will not be held. At the end of the day, it's the Grenadian taxpayers' money will pay for this stuff. Mount Sinai is not into this thing for fun, for charity. They are in for profit. It's a private-public partnership. It is not a government-to-government arrangement. Not a government-to-government arrangement. Right? So that is why I am learning the alarm that to manage a state-of-the-art hospital with modern technology, it is not cheap. It will not come cheap. But whether the Grenadian people are they enough, robust enough, people are supportive enough to spend additional funds in order to get the quality of services they require.
Now, of course, you know, Mount Sinai here, that is a private facility. Of course, we do have private facilities, medical facilities in Grenada, such as, well, I'm not going to mention the name, but there are private facilities in Grenada, and many Grenadians make the argument that they are priced out of these services, very vital services, but because they are private services, they can't afford it. And is that something that therefore the government should be guarding against here? But how would they guard against that? In the context of... Yes, go ahead.
Well, in the context of one of the ways in which the government can, the issue of the national health insurance, again, it goes back to access and the government guaranteeing a basic package of services in this new hospital that the government can fund reasonably, and anything outside of that there will be a cost associated. Government cannot fund every single intervention that the people of Grenada want. It is based on the epidemiological profile and what can they afford. A basic, reasonable package of services Grenadian people must be able to access. Yes, that is the role of government, right? Government have that responsibility to provide. Now, there are concerns about the private providers in the country. And I know there are private hospitals in Grenada, and they'll be concerned about that. I am also concerned of the role, the strategic role of the St. George's University. That is a silent arrangement. In 2012, the new hospital was built, the proposal built in collaboration with the St. George's University, and there was a revenue enhancement component to that, which is expected to go back into the consolidated fund. I don't know yet what is the transaction arrangement with the Mount Sinai Hospital. Right now, they're providing advisory services, but I really don't know what is in the devil's in the detail as yet. I think it's too early. We are in the free investment phase.
Yes, but I want to. There is one clip from Ms. Saint Bernard that I want us to take a listen to.
I'm happy to take that question. So, the Project Polaris. Project Polaris is the concept of building the medical city. The government cabinet of ministers have created a delivery unit to lead in that project. And the delivery unit consists of myself, who is the project sponsor. And so I am the lead government representative responsible for the project. We have a consultant, which Mr. Damien Dolland is the lead of the consulting firm Darasami, which has been our lead strategic advisor with respect to this project. We have also are working with Deputy Permanent Secretary Ms. Siobhan Britton-Tellisford as the Permanent Secretary on assignment to the Project Polaris Delivery Unit.
When we hear sponsor, normally it's this entity or this person is responsible for doing a whole lot of, they are literally the investor behind it. This person is sponsoring. However, in this case, I'm not getting that impression. So I was trying to understand the use of the term sponsor. I could understand you talk about the lead consultant, and so this is pretty clear, but it's the first time I'm hearing of someone being described as a sponsor of a project and is not the person doing the investment behind it. Okay.
So there is no investment component to the terminology being used in project sponsor. It really just means the lead person appointed by cabinet to have responsibility for delivery of the project. It's just the terminology that we've used for that role.
Mr. Gilchrist, project sponsor. I've never heard that in the context of private.
I'm aware of it.
You are? Oh, so okay. So please educate us on that.
No, I'm very integrated with the Central Block construction in Trinidad and Tobago. So you notice that they said the government is a sponsor. And the government has, and the term could be used interchangeably, but the government appoints these people. Right? The government is a sponsor. The owner of the project, we speak about ownership of the project, and usually we say, well, the ministry owns the project, right? But the sponsor is the government of Grenada. The government is ultimately responsible. So whenever the country is holding anybody responsible, not Mount Sinai, the government of Grenada. So I follow that dialogue, I think, but I noticed that she says that the cabinet or whoever approved these people, the lead, the consultant, and the PS, as involvement of the government, the cabinet, as involvement of the government. So the government is a sponsor. The government is sponsored. The government is a sponsor. From my experience, so the hospital will be constructed by the private provider and hand over to not hand over, they may manage it for over a 30, 40-year period. So that's how I understand that dialogue. But very interesting.
Yes.
Because in Trinidad and Tobago, we have the state entity, the project consultant, UDCOT, and then the owner of the project is the Ministry of Health. Once it's completed, is handed over to the authority. So that is clear. That's okay.
Very well. All right. So what excuse me. What we're going to do now, Mr. Gilchrist, we'll take a quick break, come up for air, and then we do have some interesting questions from the audience that I want to answer. And I just want to say something. I want to respond to Mr. Lazarus Joseph here. Mr. Gilchrist is no talking head, no regular talking head. This is a man this is a Grenadian, first of all, who has worked and has working experience with these types of arrangements. So I just want to put that out there, Mr. Joseph. I'm not too sure if you were trying to, I'm not sure what the intention is. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but let's take that quick break and we'll be right back for some viewer questions.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
Say and publicly say I've told
At the heart of this 84-acre medical city, located or to be located at Hovale St. George, lies a state-of-the-art 250-bed smart research hospital. And I take this again for you to understand what we are doing here for the Grenadian people. We're speaking of a 250-bed smart research hospital. This facility will be equipped with the capacity, with the technology, and with the expertise to deliver high-quality secondary care and specialist services. It will also be able to address a number of our needs in terms of our specialist services that is currently lacking in our system. It will also address a comprehensive outpatient and surgical services, a digital-first infrastructure that supports real-time health data, and data within the health system is a critical component in the delivery of top-class care. It will also embody cutting-edge training programs for our local healthcare professionals.
I'd like to thank you, the government of Grenada, for choosing us, Mount Sinai Health System, as your long-term strategic partner for this project. We greatly appreciate. This is not just an honor, but a very important trust in our commitment and in our capabilities to help you, assist you, as you said, in this endeavor. This is by any means a very historic project for your country, and it is a huge and very important undertaking for our health system as well. Mount Sinai Health System is a 7-hospital health system with a medical school, nursing school, and enormous research and innovative activities today. We were established 170 years ago as the Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City, and since then we grew to be a globally recognized academic medical center. As such, we are very much taking the fundamental mission of our medical center to heart internationally as well. We would like to share all of the innovations, all of the cutting-edge technologies and knowledge that we have developed over the years with our partners internationally. We are not only proud and honored, but actually very happy to be able to do that with Grenada for one very important reason. This is, as it was said before, are not our first time in Grenada. We have been working with your healthcare professionals. We have been working with the mental health team, and we have been working with the general hospital team already. And one thing we are absolutely certain about even now, that your healthcare workers we cannot praise them enough. They are fully dedicated to providing the best possible healthcare to all of your citizens.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. Again, we're happy to be joined by Mr. Terran Gilchrist. Mr. Terran Gilchrist, the Grenadian hospital management specialist. Of course, he's now based in Trinidad and Tobago, with the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, where he has served in various health authorities there in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And so what we want to do now is to get to some questions and comments. And Margaret Francis is saying, I think people need to realize that, like everything else, there is a cost to healthcare. It is not free. Workers have to be paid, medicine and equipment have to be bought and maintained, etc., etc. I think, Mr. Gilchrist, there is no arguments there. But I think even before people get to hospitals, the primary healthcare is so critical. Early detection, early interventions, is so critical before we get to that secondary aspect of healthcare. One of the things the minister said, though, was that it's going to be a 200-bed facility. What say you about that capacity there?
No, I have no issue with that. I think the current capacity is 240 or 50, he says. Mm-hmm. See, you have to account for increases, right? But the non-communicable disease pandemic is really taking a toll. Diabetes, hypertension, cancer, hospitalization. And in the region, beds are very important. In Trinidad, beds is a big issue. That's why they're constructing a lot of hospitals. So I don't issue with the bed. What I think, and I think the minister, there will be some aspect for mental health, acute mental health services in this new facility, which I think. So I have no issue with 240 central block in Trinidad. Yeah,
so that's good. That's good capacity. That's good.
No, I don't have no issue with that.
Yeah, very well. State of the art does not change outcomes or impact quality of care by itself. It is the people who make that difference. Changing healthcare in Grenada means changing the people. If not, it would just be another case of putting new wine in old gaskets.
So one of the ways in which you measure the impact of any investment is hardcore epidemiological data, health outcomes. And for those people who like to talk about the United States healthcare system, look at the life expectancy in the United States, how much they're spending, and look at Antigua, or look at anyone in the Caribbean. So investment in technology does not necessarily mean there's an improvement in health outcomes. In fact, the hospital is treating people that are ill. The unsustainable way is building a primary healthcare-based health system and linking with agriculture, sports, etc., like health in every aspect of the economy, health promotion, health education, health prevention and protection. That is the sustainable way. What the government is doing is technology, building a hospital to look after the sick. Come get sick, get ill, do what you want, and come to the hospital, and I will take care of you. That is not sustainable. So taking, and let me tell you something, Bob. What will happen? Take my word for it. That hospital is going to suck up or consume the majority of the resources in the healthcare system. Right now, hospitals account for 60% of the money goes to the healthcare system. So primary care, disease immunization, and programs, etc. I am telling you, there must be a balance, a paradigm shift, and that is why I'm asking for priority setting in this hospital. What are the priorities now and over a long-term period? You can roll services in as the economy takes up, etc., etc. But I agree with that comment. Yeah, that's an important point.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Penelope Jelano is making an interesting point here. U.S. healthcare, the grossly elevated cost of U.S. healthcare is driven by liability in a very litigious country. In other words, if I go into the hospital in Grenada, yes, the chances of me being successful in a medical malpractice lawsuit would be very slim compared to if I were to do the same, say, at Mount Sinai in New York City.
I agree. I have to study in the United Kingdom. They're spending approximately 90 million pounds on annual litigation. People, let me tell you something. People are much more litigious than before, you know. People are not going to accept substandard care and services. The issue of consumerism is taking a big slot of how we perceive things, and therefore government must be concerned. And that is why hospitals are now moving towards accreditation, which is a guaranteed quality. There's no way of measuring the quality of care in Grenada. There's no independent way to measure it. And I think the expertise of Mount Sinai, I always say that they're extremely good. But the issue of litigation is a big issue, and that's why the legislation in public health legislation will have to be looked at and changed to suit the new trend, right? The future. So that's a good statement.
I assume we'll see an excuse me, active telemedicine program, which should help in cost reduction.
No, that's a very telemedicine. Yeah, so interestingly, that is a way in which telemedicine or telehealth is the future, a data-driven organ, and I think it's extremely could be beneficial to the Grenadian people because you can link with top class experts in America and get an expert opinion instead of you're doing a surgical procedure and you don't have to to do a surgery next week. You can communicate with the doctors and communicate with colleagues in the US. And that's an excellent. That's leveraging technology, right? But technology do not come with cheapness. It is costly.
Yeah.
Healthcare is costly. If you want American standard of healthcare, you will have to pay for it. Right?
Yeah. Let us get on to some other comments. Let's see here. Let's get to some relevant comments. We're not going to tone police anyone here. That's just I hope. The government has been pushing prevention, encouraging walks, hikes, sports, and healthy eating. While the government can do more, they have been taking a holistic approach to health. And of course, somebody also mentioned here the Grenada Food and Nutrition Council, as well as being, I suppose, a partner, and that we should invest more in things like the Grenada Food and Nutrition Council, because a lot of the disease burdens, not only in Grenada but in the developing world, has to do with lifestyle concerns. Yes, diabetes, hypertension, things like that, diet, all of that.
So I'm happy for that comment. The government strategy, building a primary healthcare base, health prevention, promotion, and linking with agriculture, sports, children, immunization. Those things are important, very important. But when you have a limited resource constraints countries and you have to decide whether or not you're going to fix the CT scan machine, a practical situation, CT scan and the public is crying out, are you going to put money in the primary care? So it's very important that government will have to do something called national health accounts, tracking the expenditure to see where the money is going so that they can make the necessary changes. But I think that is also important. And some countries, something called classical demarketing. If you build a large hospital, you actually tell them to get sick and have a bed for you, right? But if you build a smaller hospital, you're actually pushing people to get to the community, to the primary care services, and have it there rather than coming to the hospital where you're only going to see specialist arrangement. But you have situations where hospitals are consumed with primary care conditions because of the collapse of the primary healthcare system. They're coming to the hospital for primary care prevention. If you go to the accident and emergency now, you see 80%, 60% of the people are there, not supposed to come there because the primary care collapsed. They're closed in the afternoon. They're not on Saturday and Sunday. So where do we go? In the hospital. In the hospital, right?
Yeah. Now, this was a question not so much from the comment section, but this is a question someone posted on a thread. This is a Grenadian citizen who is very civically engaged, and that question has to do with procurement and supply chains rather. And the question was, a major source of national debt and limitations has been reliance on expensive foreign sources of medication and medication supplies. Of course, we know that there is a clearinghouse that Grenada relies on in the context of the OECS to source certain medicines. But the question that citizen was raising was, will the project address a more sustainable sourcing, including regional procurement or local manufacturing to reduce cost and increase resilience with respect to how we procure medicines? And of course, that is a question I'll be posing to the government of Grenada, guess when they appear on the program. But in your experience, Mr. Gilchrist, that question of procurement, and sometimes you hear Grenadians say, well, they go up in the hospital and they tell you, well, we don't have this medicine, we don't have that medicine. And there's always this back and forth between the politicians around whether or not we paid the clearinghouse or we didn't pay the clearinghouse, and it becomes a political football and all of that. What role should procurement play in all of this, especially given the resources that Mount Sinai may be able to access, in terms of medicines and things like that?
That is why sometimes I advocate. That is why, the bureaucracy in the public, in the civil service arrangements. You know that, right?
Yes.
The issue of procurement is a big issue. Procurement, medical products, vaccines, and technology is a core building block of the healthcare system. There are actually 6 building blocks. 1, leadership and governance. 2, financing. 3, human resources. 4, physical infrastructure. 5, medical products and technology. And 6, health information system. We don't manufacture nothing for hospitals in Grenada. Everything is procured overseas. And the lack of an inefficient procurement system can bring any modern healthcare system on its knees. And that is why I firmly believe that the Mount Sinai will play an active role in the management, which involve the procurement of supplies and equipment for this hospital. In fact, there usually be a procurement contract separate from the physical infrastructure and the replacement of technologies, the maintenance of equipment and supplies. That is a critical pathway for the success of any hospital. Now, there is this concept of health technology assessment, in that before a technology is introduced, in the case of TCI, into healthcare, that must be discussed, and a proper health and technology assessment be done on this intervention with respect to the efficiencies and safety and sustainability. I suspect that the Mount Sinai has a lot of expertise in this area. But leaving this up to the Grenadian civil service technocrats, yeah, I have grave concerns about that. And that is why there's a lot of wisdom in bringing private sector initiatives into public sector arrangements. So it's a big area in Trinidad. The issue of the procurement cycle is a big issue, but we have an issue of corruption here, and therefore there is new procurement legislation, right, with respect to the procurement and the use of state funds for procurement of goods and services. There's a new legislation. I don't know if that will be the situation in Grenada, but I am very doubtful that our technocrats and expertise exist in the current bureaucratic civil service arrangement that exists there now.
Now, one of the issues, Mr. Gilchrist, of course, we're building a spanking new facility out there in Hope Vale. The model, that there was a preliminary model that was released, but Ms. St. Bernard indicated that there is going to be an updated one and all of that. And that is the human capacity. Now, Mount Sinai was initially selected, according to the government, as a service provider to look into the issue of service. Again, healthcare service delivery. I ostensibly, I believe, to change the culture of healthcare service delivery. But part of that also is that lack of fundamental capacity as well, right? We look at, in the context of Grenada and the Caribbean, there is a dearth of healthcare professionals in the system. And those who are there are incentivized to leave the system. So let us talk about perhaps opportunities that Mount Sinai can bring in beefing up that capacity challenge that we were confronted with. I mean, you hear the Nurses Association talk about, for example, in the context of the current hospital facility, how many nurses are assigned to X amount of beds. The ratio is just not equal in that context. So let us talk about that whole issue of capacity. Yeah. And have a new hospital facility.
Yeah.
But if that human capital isn't there, then we adjust again, as Margaret Francis said earlier, we're putting new wine in old gaskets.
Well, that is accurate. The bricks and mortar and equipment will not deliver the services that we require. It's human beings that do. We know that there's a global shortage and there's a migration crisis in the Caribbean. I mean, the study was done by a Grenadian, Justin. He did a study on migration of nurses in the Caribbean. What I expect to see in the pre-investment stage is a human resource development plan to drive this matter, this issue forward. Not talking about an assessment of the current and the future requirement, the levels, the skills that is required to deliver the services that is expected. And I think the Mount Sinai can play a fundamental role in the training and upskilling, right? There is, as I mentioned, the shortages exist. And within the health system, payment of salaries and human resources account for a significant part of the budget, right? So I think that I supporting that there is a need right now for a forecasting the human resource requirement by numbers and skill for the delivery of this state-of-the-art hospital, and by extension, a training and development plan, over a long-term period in order to address, properly funded, not just write on paper that, government does write, but fund it to support the implementation of this plan now. I have seen situations in Trinidad where children's hospital constructed, and there were no human resources. All the equipment sit there, and there were issues of nurses and specialists. It is important to look at this. I saw the minister mention something about it. the need to forecast the requirement of this new entity and the funding arrangement, and the strategic alliances with the training institution, yes, right, whether in Mount Sinai, St. George's Medical School, etc. This is the time for that planning process to take place now, in the pre-investment phase of this hospital, and also the development of a transition plan from the old hospital into the new hospital. A transition plan. Okay? In order to build a new culture, the equipment and the buildings are not going to do it. What you require is people. And training must be a crucial component. There must be a separate plan. Just as you have the infrastructure plan, you must have a human resource plan. Failing to do so, we will not be able to achieve the outcome that we require. All of which require funding, investment in human resource skill development for that new hospital, because there are different skills. Biomedical engineers, health informatics specialists, nursing specialists, there'll be different skills. And that could be prioritized and phased over a period of time, right? And that must happen now. The minister must ask of the advisory board or whoever the private provider to provide that. No. So I am in fully support of this, but that is a big critical success factor going forward.
Absolutely, yes. That human resource, and I see Margaret here saying the work ethic and attitude has to change in Grenada. It's nasty, plain, and simple.
It is interesting. It's really nasty. Not only in Grenada, but in the Caribbean. I've worked through the Caribbean. In the UK, they're grappling with this issue, and there's this concept now about the issue of kindness. There's a new source in the UK about something called intelligent kindness. We got to be kind to our patients, and people have to be taught that, right? You have to be kind to one another and to our patients, right? Intelligent kindness, and I think that's an important point she's raising. Despite everything else, we should be kind to our patients and our colleagues. And that is a culture that we build over time. It's not going to happen overnight. It will take time to do so.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Of course, those are some snapshot. We also have a physician who, incidentally, is a very good friend of mine listening. That is Dr. Terry Christopher, Dr. Randall Terry Christopher, who is now, of course, a triple board certified surgeon. I'm really proud of Dr. Christopher and his journey, because I've seen it up close and personal for physicians. It's never, the process is never easy. So you know, it's always good when the physicians make it to the end of that journey and are in the process of giving back in the healthcare sector. But he's raising this. What are some of the basics that the government has assured for Grenadians in this facility that's geared towards medical tourism? And I think, I believe what he's trying to get at is, you know, if we don't have basic screening services at this new facility, we're talking about, you know, things like being able to do a colonoscopy, you know, being able to do mammograms for women in respect of breast cancer and things like that. You know, can you articulate, because of course the government is also framing this facility as being the premier medical tourism facility for the OECS. But if, you know, those basic services can be provided, then what kind of medical tourism are we promoting, really?
So that's what I said. The government have to provide to the population a basic package at a minimum level, at a certain standard, to the population they can access. And I think what he's saying is that you got to provide to the Grenadian people first, before you try to leverage the lucrative medical tourism industry. And you have to compete. Grenada will have to compete with Central Latin America. I go to Latin America for my medical care because I know it's cheaper, etc. So I'm saying the first responsibility of the government is to provide the best possible care, basic possible care, is for the Grenadian people. right? The focus must be for the Grenadian people. There are other aspects of medical services, high-end medical treatment, and etc. Those can be accessed with some measure of additional payment. But basic medical care, as you say, basic screen, etc., that has to be done. One of the issues we found in Montreal, it's a small country, is that the population keep asking for state-of-the-art, but state-of-the-art, but you cannot, you don't have the population base to provide, to have a high-skilled, triple-trained specialist in Grenada. You don't have the patient base to manage those, and there's a different arrangement for those. There could be treatment overseas. However, those are things I have to consider. That's what I said, Kellon. That's what I said.
Yes, sir.
Whatever it must be affordable. It must be equitable. People must be able to access it. And if they cannot access it by virtue of the financing, that's an issue. Right? So the government, I think the government have a duty bonds to provide for the Grenadian people, first and foremost. And there is an investment component to health. And therefore, government should leverage that to benefit more and more services being rolled out to the population.
Yep. Karen Williams is saying, "Oh, Mr. Gilchrist, I didn't even notice you actually from Hopevale, sir." I didn't know that. Okay, very well. I think that pretty much wraps up a lot of the comments here. And again, let's go. I think we have one final comment here. So, and I would say to the panel, why would the government open this facility like this without putting the people first? Please, Ms. Smart, I'm not sure what you're getting at. We have a responsibility as a fourth estate to articulate and analyze everything that the government of Grenada does. They work for the people of Grenada. And what we're doing here is we're analyzing what the press conference was all about. As I said in the lead up, we did invite representatives of the government of Grenada to appear on the program. They will be coming on here next week because it's important on these matters that we do deep dives to really make sense of it to you, the public. Yes, the government of Grenada has a responsibility to inform the public. It doesn't mean that the government of Grenada should not be questioned on the work that they're doing for the people of Grenada. And that's what we do here on the Bubb Report. That's what we've been doing for the last 5 years with the new National Party and now with the National Democratic Congress. And we will continue to do so irrespective of whichever government is in power. So I think it's very important that I make that point. We always do this. This is what we do on the Bubb Report. This is not new. And so Anthony Howard, finally, sir, is saying that this facility that's been built would allow physicians that are graduates of SGU to give to Grenada. I mean, Mr. Howard, I think government of Grenada already has those agreements in place. Not so, Mr. Gilchrist? So I'm not too sure how this new facility will change that.
Well, we're not too sure at this stage, you know. We are in those arrangements that I heard, those arrangements are being worked out. The roll-up of St. George's Medical School being worked out and discussion during the early stage. We are still in the early stage of it. I expect more information going to come out as they negotiate. So I have no fear about that.
Yeah, very well, absolutely. So, Mr. Gilchrist, I think we have exhausted this conversation, but of course, what you've added here, I think you said you've added value based on your experience with the previous NDC government. I want to emphasize that since everybody sees things in partisan lenses these days, but it should not matter whether it was the NDC or the NNP. At the end of the day, I believe you were doing it in the best interest of Grenada. Yes? So I want to thank you, sir, for appearing on the program this week. Of course, any final comments from you, sir?
Well, the final comment is that I said in the beginning, I think the government arrangement, engagement with Mount Sinai, a world-renowned, cutting-edge health system, there can be, and I think there will be, a tremendous amount of benefit that can come to the Grenadian people. I'm very excited about that. The reputation of the Mount Sinai is impeccable. So I am not going to question what I am concerned, what I may be concerned in, and we are in the early stages of this partnership, right? And we are in the early investment stage in the partnership. I would like to see an economic evaluation done, a sustainability analysis, issues related to human resource development plans, some sort of ideas about the partnership arrangements, right? How much is this thing going to cost? The issue of financing and management arrangements, I want to see that happen. And I think over time, I suspect that there's nothing wrong with 240 beds. The Grenadian population deserve to have the best possible medical services available to them. I think the NDC is on the right track. Is on the right track in this strategic arrangement. However, it is important that we have transparency. It's important that all Grenadians, all stakeholders are involved, and they're being prepared for the ushering of a new dawn of a secondary care facility. However, I wish to advise that hospitals are very complex. They are complex systems, and they will make mistakes. There will be some issues going forward. But if we work together, I think we can get the best out of this collaboration with Mount Sinai. And that's my comment.
Absolutely. Mr. Gilchrist, thank you so much for appearing on. Of course, your brother has always been a feature of the Bubb Report in the past, so it's always good to have the other brother. So we have an economist, we have a health administrator. Who else do we have in the family, among siblings as professionals? Who else is there that I'm missing?
Well, there's one who is worked at the Caribbean Airline. He's a IT auditor.
IT auditor. That's very well. It's excellent. Excellent. Good to know. So, Mr. Gilchrist,
thank you very much. And at any time, I'm available to share my experience.
Yes, absolutely. Viewers and listeners, this was a very important conversation here with Mr. Terran Gilchrist. Mr. Terran Gilchrist, of course, who is the brother of Dr. Colin Gilchrist, who incidentally is from the Hope Vale, Southeast St. George area. He is a hospital management specialist. And what he attempted to do today was to make sense of the press conference held by the government of Grenada last week announcing Project Polaris with respect to the hospital facility that will be constructed at Hope Vale in St. George, as well as the partnership that the government of Grenada will be entering into with the Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City. They're based in New York City, but of course they do have an international branch as well that does international partnerships. And we attempted to make sense of the impacts and implications, financial, systemic, and otherwise, of having such a partnership with the government of Grenada going into this. I believe it's a long-term partnership that the government has. And of course, we did invite members of the government of Grenada to appear on the program this week, but they gave us a commitment that representatives of the government will be here next week to discuss Project Polaris. So a lot of the questions that you raised today, a lot of the questions that Mr. Gilchrist raised, we will also be addressing those and directing those to the government representatives who will be coming on the program next week to answer those. And of course, before we go, we just want to do one final roll call. Tell us where you're listening the program from. We have just over 330 people on the YouTube stream. If all of you can just hit the like button, for us over on YouTube so that the algorithm can share this program with many other people who might not have had an opportunity to watch it. So please do us a favor by liking it over on YouTube. But tell us, where are you watching the Bubb Report from this week? We would love to hear from you. Earlier in the program earlier in the live stream, someone was watching. Lydia Louison was watching from Montreal, Canada. Then Dr. Jocelyn Peters was watching from Seamoon in St. Andrew. Then we have Barry Clarkson, who is watching us from the U.S. Virgin Islands. Good morning, Miss Clarkson. We have Bluebell, I believe, Bluebell Harveyvale watching from London. I suspect, Bluebell, you're from Carriacou. Carriacou in the house. And then we have Darius Thomas, who is also watching from, well, St. Andrews in Grenada, St. Andrew in Grenada there. Alana Bain is watching from Toronto, Canada. We have Marcia Gabriel Batiste, who is watching from Montparnasse. Dale is in St. Andrews. Leonard, of course, is on Four Roads. Respect, Mr. Greenwich. Respect to Four Roads. And of course, I just want to congratulate a young lady from Four Roads. Well, actually, two young ladies from Four Roads. One of them is my cousin, who also earned her PhD. That is Dr. Janelle Williams, as well as Kizzy Belfon, who recently earned her medical degree. So, of course, they always, these days, Four Roads gets a negative rap. But I can tell you assuredly that many good people and many great things have come from Four Roads. So congratulations to you, Dr. Belfon and Dr. Williams, on your accomplishments. Arthur Langine is watching from Brooklyn. Aki is in Montreal. June Park is in London. Susan is in Hamilton, New Jersey. Of course, Cadella. Thank you, Cadella, again, for being an avid viewer. You watching from Basse-Terre in St. Kitts. Anthony is back in New Jersey on vacation, but he's saying that he will be back in Grenada very soon. Of course, we have Mr. Nurse, Mr. Raymond Nurse. Hello, sir. It's good to hear from you. You're watching us from Germany. A lot happening over there in the EU. Yes, sir. Pompano Beach, Florida, Montreal, Grenada, Potomac, Maryland. Penelope Gelino is in Potomac, Maryland. And of course, Ernesto says, asking us to wish Miss Totala Phillip a happy 105th birthday from Montrose, St. Patrick, but who is currently living in Brooklyn, New York. So, Miss Phillip, a happy 105th birthday to you, ma'am. Anna Williams, thank you for joining us from New Jersey. We have Alma Martin, who is in New York. Desiree Thomas, who is in St. David's. Marva Nelson, who is in Montreal. And of course, we have somebody watching from Niagara, Canada. So viewers and listeners, we want to thank all of you for tuning in to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. We do promise, however, that next week Sunday there will be a blockbuster edition of the Bubb Report. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag, but do expect there to be a blockbuster edition of the program next week. Of course, on behalf of my producer, Rian Charles, I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellan Bubb, wishing everyone a pleasant week ahead. Take care. Bye-bye. Hi, everyone. Thanks for checking out the Bubb Report's social media pages. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch our weekly live show, follow our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can catch repeat episodes on Wednesdays at 4 and 5 p.m. respectively on CRFM Radio and GBN TV in Grenada. We are also viewed on Sundays at 8 p.m. on WPG 10 throughout the Caribbean. Thanks for watching.